Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today for Hero Arts, and I'm so excited about this new Bloom and Grow collaboration set from Hero Arts and Altenew. I decided to do a non-traditional floral colored card on Hero Hues Adriatic cardstock using Polychromos colored pencils to color in the stamped and embossed outline floral image on the dark cardstock. I love how well polychromos show up on a dark cardstock color. I'm going to start by figuring out the placement. I have a piece of white cardstock as a placeholder in my MISTI as I line up my large floral in the bottom left corner, as well as one of the sentiments from the set. We're going to be using Hello Lovely. I'm going to prep my cardstock with a powder tool because I'm doing a lot of stamping and embossing. We're going to stamp the floral in the bottom left corner as well as the sentiment and heat emboss with Hero Arts gold embossing powder. It looks a little messy right now, but I will wipe away that powder residue after I've stamped and embossed and let that embossing powder cool before I start coloring with my colored pencils. We're going to heat this until the outline is completely melted. Then we're going to add some leaves and another little section of that large floral in the upper right corner of the card. I want to fill it in without overwhelming the design. This floral that we stamped first is definitely the focal point, and the second floral up in the upper corner is going to be kind of the accent, if you will. I need to figure out my placement for the leaves because I'm not using all of them and I don't want any of that to overlap the petals. I'll go ahead and stamp them separately as I think that's going to work the best. I need to add a little bit more powder before I stamp the additional floral image above the sentiment. And you can see how the florals frame up the Hello Lovely sentiment perfectly. I also purposely offset my sentiment for a little added interest. Now that we have our florals and sentiment, I need to figure out that leaf placement. I know that I want it to be down there in the bottom right corner. I'm going to play around with the placement in my MISTI until I'm happy with how it looks. Then we'll stamp the leaves, emboss those, and then we can start coloring, which is my favorite part. Because one of the leaves overlaps the flower petals a lot, I'm just going to carefully not ink up that portion. If you're worried that you might get some ink on there, you can always mask it off with a little post-it tape, a post-it note, or other kind of tape. If there's anywhere that there's some embossing flakes that I don't want them to be, I'm just going to take a dry paintbrush and wipe those away before heating those floral leaves. Now that I have all of the components in place, I'm ready to wipe away any of that powder residue and start coloring. I normally color with a white pencil over each section and then add the color on top. I left my white pencil in the shot so you can see why I didn't use it. I'm using ivory today. My white pencil is down to a stub. I ended up ordering multiple white pencils online, but they just haven't come yet. However, the ivory will work exactly the same, especially when I'm not needing a white accent anywhere on my card. It's just going to give a nice base color, and I just use a very, very simple light hand to add that color to the petal before adding my color on top. I really like how this looks when it has that base of a white or an ivory underneath the color. I used a couple shades of green for those two leaves, and then I'm simply going to be coloring in each of the petals. I'm adding a base of ivory, then down the center of each flower petal I'm using my lightest blue color, which is light cobalt turquoise, and then I'm adding in cobalt turquoise and a dark blue color. So the dark blue is kind of at the base of each petal and then the tip. Then next comes the cobalt turquoise, and finally in the center where it's lightest is light cobalt turquoise. You can go over this as many times as you want to kind of get that effect. I ended up pulling my dark color out further, and then my mid-tone color further yet, so that light cobalt turquoise ends up being more of a highlight on each flower petal. I wanted to keep in the first couple petals because I definitely get better as the coloring goes on, which many times, in fact, probably an argument could be made for every time is the case, simply because you get a little more comfortable with the design. But I generally started by adding that light cobalt turquoise to the center of my petal, and then from there I would add in the darker colors. Another tip when working with colored pencils of any kind, whether they're polychromos or Prismacolor or whatever they might be, having a pencil sharpener nearby to constantly sharpen your colored pencils is going to be so helpful. It's not quite as important with this technique where we have an embossed outline to work with, but if you are coloring with a no-line coloring technique or a smaller image, or you just want that really, really fine detail, I recommend sharpening your pencils often. Even with coloring this, I sharpened my pencils pretty often just to have the best technique that I could or the best results that I could. Another tip with an image this big or a floral image that has this many petals, I recommend working with just a few at a time. In fact, coloring that base ivory color with that many petals is probably a few too many, but I was trying to streamline this because I knew I had so much coloring to do. One of the reasons it makes it easier to just do a couple petals at a time, as it limits the mistakes or missing in a certain area. Because this is so large, it's going to be probably a little harder to miss a flower petal. You'll see right off the bat if you don't get all colors there. But it's a good habit to get into just so that you don't miss those areas on maybe a smaller kind of image. As you add more and more color to each petal and get more of the image colored in, you really start to see it take shape. I am such a huge fan of blue on teal or blue on blue, which is the look I was going for here. And it's kind of an unexpected, out of the ordinary color combination, I think, for flowers. And it ends up being something that I really, really love because it's unexpected. Another thing is we're in a season of creating a lot of holiday cards for the most part. And so I really wanted to break away completely from holiday cards and holiday colors. And this is one of the ways to do that. I really, really love the teal color of the Adriatic cardstock. It's probably one of my top 3 Hero Hues cardstock colors just because I don't have anything else like it in my stash, and so it just really stands out to me. It's one of my favorite colors anyway. Blues of any kind are my favorite colors. I love aquas, teals, blues, all of it. And I think when crafting, it's great to gravitate towards something that you personally love in other areas of your life, whether it be the color of clothing you wear, the colors you like to decorate with, anything like that. And for me, this very much holds true. Blue is so soothing and beautiful, and it's one of these color combinations, or one of those color combinations that just stands out to me. When I see other people use it, it stands out to me. And so I definitely kind of pulled on that when deciding what to use for my card today. Look how beautiful this is becoming the more we get the color added. That light cobalt turquoise, even though so much of it gets colored up, look at what a difference that makes in each flower petal. Each petal has a highlight. It makes the petals just come to life and have more movement and just more dimension, even though this is a flat card. I left in the coloring of this entire bloom. I think I cut out most of the coloring of the one in the upper right corner just to save you a little time, because this card is, while it did take a little time to make, there's not a ton of steps to it. You can leave out some of the finishing things that I'm going to do and have a beautiful card. It's a lot of coloring, and it's one of those projects that I found really soothing to create. It's also important to mention this is another collaboration stamp set brought to us from Hero Arts and one of our other favorite manufacturers in the card making industry, which is Altenew. And I love that Hero Arts has joined forces with so many of our favorites to create these collaboration sets. I personally love when stamp companies come together and support one another, and that is what makes this industry so strong and so spectacular. And Altenew, of course, known for their gorgeous florals, and so what else than a beautiful floral from Altenew today. I hope you guys love this as much as I do. This is actually one of 2 card examples I'll be sharing with you. This is the only card example in this video, but please make sure and check out the Hero Arts YouTube channel and blog next week, as I will be sharing another card example using this set. So really excited about that. Just trying to share multiple ways you can use the same set to create completely different cards. We are almost done coloring this in. This background measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So it's A2 size. It's going to go from side to side, top to bottom. This panel will completely cover the front of a card base. I did that on purpose. I did not want a white border. You could always trim it down a little bit if you do want a little bit of a white border. When I was done coloring it all in, I took some Sea Salt Hero Hues Reactive Ink and just went around the edges with a blending brush to soften the edges a little bit. This is just going to soften the Adriatic cardstock. I don't want to bring it clear to the center. I still want that vibrant color, but it just softens the edges. Then I'm going to buff away any of that ink that might be on the embossed areas. And this is where you can distress if you want to or not. I know that there's a couple of camps. Some people love it, some people don't. I tend to really like distressing, not always, but sometimes, especially a white paint distress. This is the Hero Arts White Liquid Watercolor. I took a paintbrush, I'm splattering it all over, including on the flowers. I like that look. I'm going to let that sit and completely air dry. In fact, I let mine air dry overnight, not really on purpose. This was created at the end of the day. I had somewhere to go. I came back the next day and finished up this card. Finishing up the card, I'm adding a scattering of Hero Arts champagne sequins attached with liquid glue and the Crystal Katana. Gonna add these all over in the center of my sequins, and even kind of a few additional drops elsewhere. I'm going to add Nuvo crystal drops in pale gold to the center and then scatter just a couple of extra drops, all to coordinate with the gold embossed edges of this. Then we will take this whole background panel and attach it to a white top fold card base to finish the design. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Polychromos on teal cardstock floral designed card featuring the Hero Arts and Altenew collaboration stamp set called Bloom and Grow. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Hero Arts stamps and dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean so much to me if you'd give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a new card making or paper crafting video. Again, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you here next time.